Welcome, everyone, to Los Libertinos podcast. I am your host, Carlos Avelar. This is Chingazos and Fire, episode number 6. Our guest today is Buck Johnson. Aquí está. He's here in the flesh, in person here. Buck Johnson is a fireman by night, podcaster by day. He is the host. He hosts a show called Counterflow with Buck Johnson, and we are. My wife and I came over to their house, and Buck and his wife Brittany opened their home to us, and we're very thankful that you did that. We've had a good time with you guys, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming out.
Salud.
Podcaster by day, firefighter by night. Sometimes it switches.
There you go. So, salud, any of you guys out there drinking and hanging out. Thank you for hanging out with us. So, Buck, I like to think that half of my audience is people that are into the libertarian movement or the liberty movement, and the other half is my primos, cousins, tios, no Sanchas.
No,
no, none of that. But they might. You never know.
Yeah.
Can you kind of give a background how you got into the podcasting world, the liberty stuff? But if you don't mind, start kind of like from the bottom, how your life kind of went this way,
From the bottom, well, let's see. In the 90s, I started getting, I graduated high school in 1995, and that's kind of when the internet was coming into its own a little bit. And so I ended up searching, I don't know how, but I ended up searching about secession or something like that, and started researching secession movements in the United States, and was kind of interested in that. And I ended up moving to Central Texas from San Antonio in 98. And on the radio, I would hear Alex Jones on an FM talk radio station back then, which is hard to imagine. I don't think they would let him do that now. But I would hear him, and I started getting into libertarian politics kind of organically. And he had Ron Paul on quite a bit. And so my early political influences were a mixture of like secession talk, Ron Paul, Alex Jones. And then I read Harry Brown's book. He was running for president in the year 2000 on the Libertarian Party ticket. And his book was called The Great Libertarian Offer. And so once I read that, I was sold. He went down every chapter was a topic, and how libertarians view, for instance, the drug war, overseas wars, the income taxes in general, guns and everything. Really just hit every topic. And I read it and I was like, well, yeah, this seems
Put everything together for you.
Yeah, how could you not agree with this? This is perfect. So that's kind of what got me into this stuff early on.
The liberty movement, and Ron Paul and stuff. So a lot of what you're saying is a lot of kind of how I got into it through Ron Paul stuff. And when did you decide that you wanted to become a podcaster and get into this way?
Yeah, that was probably, I started hearing, I can't really remember the early beginnings of podcast experience for me, but I would hear Jason Stapleton somehow. I'm a big wrestling fan. That's what it was, actually. And so I started hearing Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast and a few wrestling podcasts. And then I must have searched libertarian. I thought, well, let me check out politics. And I found Jason Stapleton and Tom Woods, and then Dave Smith, of course. And the more I would listen to those, I would, be driving around. And I thought, I bet you I could start a podcast somehow and maybe meet some of these people and interview them and talk to Tom Woods or all of these Mises Institute guys that I found fascinating that I was getting introduced to through Tom's show. And so that's kind of what got the ball rolling. You look into it and you start thinking, maybe I can do it. And then your thought goes away. And then let me look at microphones and wait a second. How do you record a podcast? This actually seems like it's doable. And so I started it, and my first interview was my second episode. And I thought, well, you got to have a sound booth and all of this stuff. So it was done in a closet at my old house. I sat and shut the door in a closet, had all these notes, and did a Skype interview with someone, and that's how it got rolling. Now I cringe if I were to listen to those first handful of episodes, I would probably cringe. So don't listen to the early ones, guys.
And your show now is called Counterflow, but before that it was called Death to Tyrants. What was the reasoning for that change?
Well, a few things kind of converged all at the same time. I had been getting turned down a little bit by certain people that didn't maybe want to come on a show called Death to Tyrants. I didn't think it was that radical of a name, but people did. And so I was thinking, I wonder if I should change the name. I don't want to be pigeonholed into just libertarian politics, because my thought process was expanding a bit out of just that niche. And I had interviewed Thaddeus Russell, a friend of ours, mutual friend of ours. And he said, for some reason, you bring the best out of me. Every time you interview me, my girlfriend says, this is the best content I hear from you, meaning him. And he said, I'm starting this podcast network. I think I want to get you on it, but I don't want it to be called Death to Tyrants. And he said, so you could do a separate show for my network. And I was like, I can't do two shows. I mean, one is a lot of work. I just put one a week out. And so I can't do two. And I'm already thinking about changing the name from Death to Tyrants. And Thad is big on, like, I don't want you to be pigeonholed into libertarianism exclusively. I want you to reach out to different types of people and get different perspectives on, all of which I was kind of thinking about. It just, the timing was perfect for it. And I said, well, I'll just change the name and we'll kind of reformat some of this, rebrand it. And so that's what we did. I came up with a list of like 20 names. My friend Bobby, who's in the Austin ANCAP group with me, who helps me with the website, and he helps me with a lot of stuff, honestly. And he came up with Counterflow. That was one. He had a list of names, and I said, I think I like that one. And I showed it to Thad. I gave him like 5 examples, and he goes, Counterflow. He's like, that's you. And so we started thinking, like, everything I do runs counter to kind of a mainstream,
Sure.
Whether it be my music interests, certainly my political interests, and even my job as a firefighter. We go running in while everyone else is running out. You know, I'm always going up against the grain, so to speak. So it seemed to be a natural fit.
What are your music interests?
Oh, there's a lot, but I mean, it goes from everything from old jazz and R&B to rockabilly to punk rock and oi music and hardcore music and traditional country music. But it's all of these are niches. You're not going to turn on the radio and hear anything that I like. So, and I used to have friends that I would say, I'm just jealous. Like, you can get in your car and just pop on the radio and just, you like it. And I was a little jealous, but I just thought, I can't listen to all this stuff that everyone else listens to. And it wasn't that I was trying to be like a counterculture guy just to do it. It was just kind of instinctively in me. And same with politics. I couldn't just turn on Fox News or MSNBC and go, yeah, these are my people. I'm always like just off to the side a bit from everything. And so the Counterflow name seemed to work.
Perfect, man. So let's get into these questions here, man.
Let's do it.
I think everybody kind of gets a vibe of, so we'll get into these questions here a little bit. So you might know this, but I didn't know this. And looking up for this question was when people reference the left wing or right wing, the history of it is that, and I never knew this, so this was kind of cool. So I guess in 18th century France,
Yeah.
it was just the wings of the assembly hall, right?
That's where they sat.
The right, if you wanted the king to have its traditional powers, you sat on the right.
Yeah.
And if you wanted the king to not have the traditional powers, you sat on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew that, and I always thought that it had to do with like a bird.
Oh,
Like honestly, I was like, okay, I mean, I guess wings. I didn't even think like that, right?
Yeah.
But I still like that because I don't know. I just like the the vision of it. And this past week when we were talking about how we were gonna come over, and I sent you this Mexican norteño song.
Yeah.
And I just go, hey man, this is what I'm about, just so you know who's coming over to your house, And there's one lyric in there that says, I'm a ownerless soul, just like a bird, I fly from port to port. And my question to you is, do you need both wings to fly? And in what direction are you trying to fly politically?
Oh, well, I suppose a bird does need both wings to fly. That's an interesting way to phrase it. In a perfect world, if we could, we talk about secession. If we could secede, for instance, down to this neighborhood or something very small, I don't think you need both wings. For instance, I would prefer to have my life free of influence from left-wing people. That would be my goal. But I realize in 2021, in a populated area, that's going to be tough to do. But I try to insulate my world free of chaotic influences. And my tattoo is a Hatebreed song. It says "Own Your World," and I try to do that as much as possible. And much of the left represents chaos and disorder and disunity. So I try to eliminate that from my little section of life here, segment of the.
So you would cut off one of the wings and stay where you can.
I'd stay grounded.
Stay grounded.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. I understand that. So is the left or left-leaning people evil?
I think the philosophy is. I think the people that are hardcore, the true believers in actual left-wing philosophy, I don't want to paint with a broad brush and say they're all evil. I think a lot of them are fooled into certain ways of thinking because the left is very good at presenting their case as if they're the people that care about the little man. And so that's a natural instinct that you think, well, I do that. I care. I don't want someone to starve in the streets. When you dig into the philosophy a little bit deeper than that, you realize it's about controlling everybody, and it's a supremacist movement. In other words, the left wing doesn't want you to just live your life like you want to do, and I think we see that quite often now. They want to make sure that you don't say certain words, that you don't participate in certain activities, that you are forced to give money to certain or the government organizations. It's that one. They want to make sure that you live by their rules, and that's not what I'm about. So are left-wing people evil? No, I don't. I mean, certainly some of them are. Certainly the leaders for sure are.
The political class.
Yeah, the political class certainly is. And I think it's an evil philosophy, and it's rooted in chaos and control and authority. But there's a lot of people that are kind of most people aren't like us where you focus on politics daily, but there's plenty of people that would say, yeah, I lean left. I like to help the poor people. Those people certainly aren't evil. They just don't look into things any further than that.
Yeah, I hear you. So you had mentioned secession and how it was a part of your foundation on how you kind of got into it. You said, I don't know why I looked into it, but you did. Why do you think you looked into it?
I can't remember. I said I liked rockabilly music, and there was I would say within rockabilly music circles, the rebel flag pops up from time to time because it's an old Southern symbol, and rockabilly music came from Memphis, Tennessee. And so the flag was kind of ubiquitous back then. Elvis would play gigs and there's rebel flags and whatnot. So it could have been from that, where I was just even doing research on Confederacy or the rebel flag or what that means outside of just a symbol within a musical subculture. And so I found the League of the South, which was then called the Southern League. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. They want to break back off of America, in the Southern states secede like they try to do the first time in the 1860s. That's interesting. And I started thinking about it what an interesting thought this is. And I can't believe there's legitimate groups out there pushing this. And so I thought that was fascinating. And they preached smaller government is better, local government is better. And of course, that seemed to make sense to me, as it still does. And so that's kind of how I stumbled upon that.
And how would you reply to anyone that isn't into this, which is, like I said, Tios, Primas, friends, and they're like rebel flag? I mean, automatically they're gonna have an instinct to say, "Oh, isn't that like a racist thing?" and all that stuff. Can you give a little insight onto why it can be, but it doesn't have to be the whole story?
Right. Well,
or maybe it is a part of it, but I mean, we can get into that a little bit too, because it's important, I think, for people to know that how it doesn't have to be, that's not the whole story.
Yeah, unfortunately, the rebel flag was used by some really bad people. And interestingly enough, the Southern League, which is now the League of the South, got infiltrated by some bad people, which is why, it's not why I got out, but I just lost, as I moved to Austin, I'm young and partying and stuff and worrying about some secession group when I'm in my early 20s. I just kind of lost interest. And then I started digging back into this and just a few years ago, and I looked, I wonder what those guys are up to. And then sure enough, there's like racist elements in it. And it was like, guys, like, you're ruining your own cause by doing stuff like this. And of course, the Klan used symbols of the rebel flag, stuff like that. And so the symbol's certainly been tainted. I actually used to have a rebel flag, and I got rid of it just because I thought, people just get the wrong. Once the thought is out there that this represents some kind of Klan establishment or something, I just, it becomes useless, unfortunately. And so once bad elements infiltrate any type of movement, sometimes the symbolism within the movement becomes tainted. And I think that's what has happened with the rebel flag. And of course, people associated with slavery or something like that, because to the victors go the spoils. So the winning side gets to write the history books. And so they get to say, well, we conquered the South because they wanted slavery and we did not. And that's the cartoon version of history, of course, but that's what people learn in school. So unfortunately, now that image has been tainted.
How would you try to sell secession to not the political left, but we're talking about the everyday left? A lot of them don't even realize that the drug war and how like someone like a state like California, or a bunch of states in the beginning were practicing like a soft secession by not doing all the federal laws. That could be one way, but that term secession just, it triggers people to think something more.
Yes.
This, but how would you try to sell it because if it was a part of your foundation when you got into this, that means it's still there, right? I mean, you built off of this secessionist thinking, a mindset.
It is. And so I when you're like me and you're steeped in it for all of these years, it becomes like just another word that means something positive. But to someone who's just living their daily life and some guy goes, I'm about secession, I think that freaks people out, the average person that's not paying attention to these kind of things. And I can understand why they wouldn't. People have to work and go to school and do their jobs and have kids. Why are you researching a secession movement online? So I would say you can give good examples like you just said. So California, that's a soft secession. It's called nullification.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
When states decide to do their own thing against what the federal government's telling them to do. So sanctuary cities, I would say, is a good thing. So in California, if San Francisco doesn't want to follow Donald Trump's immigration rules and they become sanctuary cities, that's really a form of soft secession. In other words, you've decided, and Gavin Newsom said this, he called California a nation state at one point. You've decided, we're California. I don't care what Donald Trump says. We are going to do our own thing. That's a very soft way of kind of breaking away from the federal institution that is the United States of America. It's becoming common now for sanctuary cities for guns. And through COVID, we really saw it big because one of Donald Trump's best things is that he kind of did hands off with when it came to the lockdowns. It was up to each state, as it should be. And so now we get to see really how states do their own thing and don't listen to the federal government or don't have this one rule fits everyone in the country. So we get to see, look at Florida. They were open. They're kind of their own thing. Look at California. They were locked down. They were their own thing. And so that's one way to pitch it, is that we're kind of witnessing it happen. And certainly Texas, you know how we are here. We kind of have this streak of Texas pride. And when you go to other states, let's just say you don't see Colorado Chevrolet and the Colorado edition of this Ford truck and stuff like that, because we are kind of our own people here in Texas. So I think we kind of instinctively have that spirit here to begin with. So I think that's helpful as well.
Yeah, I always find it interesting that, like people in Europe, or I guess like England or English people, whatever, when they reference our country, they call it the States.
Yes.
And I always thought that they might have more of an understanding of what that means than the common person
Right.
here. When we think of our country, we think of it as one, but it's not like that.
Right.
It really is little mini countries.
Yes, it's supposed to be that way. It's not the United States of America. It's the United States. And so initially it was set up to be, and I don't like the term democracy very much, but they say, say 50 experiments in democracy. So let each state do their own thing. I realize there weren't 50 when we started, but you get the point. So it's like a checkerboard, I think is what they call it, a checkerboard of democracy. So Texas gets to decide their gun laws or their abortion laws. And see, to my point earlier about the left being authoritarian and supremacist, you noticed when Alabama or Georgia wanted to decide their abortion laws, guess who freaks out? California. Then Hollywood's not going to film we're not going to have movies in your state. It's because that's the left-wing instinct is to, they do care about what happens in Alabama. They do care about what happens in Georgia. Alabama, they don't care if California left. They don't care what happens in Seattle, but that's because they're not left-wing and that influence all through the West Coast. They want to dictate to people in Georgia what their abortion law should be.
So why are you saying controversial things right now in this interview? Like, what do you mean you don't like democracy?
I don't like the word. I don't like democracy because it's five wolves deciding which, I forgot the saying, but it's basically, it's majority rule. I don't love that. So in other words, especially, this really hit home when California, for instance, was voting on gay marriage years ago. I believe it was during the Obama administration. And I thought, they don't get to vote on if someone can get married. And that's democracy. That's what it is. And I thought, no. 1,000 people don't get to vote if one guy's allowed to get married. That seems insane to me. And so when you break it down in that way, I don't see how anyone could say it's a positive thing. Now they'll say it's positive, let's say when Joe Biden won, well, see, democracy, we've saved democracy. But when Trump won, this isn't democracy. So even the people that say they love it, they only love it when it goes their way.
Yeah, no, since I've been getting into the podcasting through, listening to you, listening to different people like that, and some other people, this idea of completely throwing away this idea of democracy is new to me. And it's going to be new to a lot of listeners. Like right now, they're going to, people that, no democracy, or, but I also understand that I think it's, the foundation of it is that it's fair. Hey, right. You won, but they don't understand what happens when someone just wins. They get to rule over the other half that I guess lost. Where did we start going bad when we're a republic, but a lot of people don't know what a republic is? Where did it start going bad for us as a country with the lack of understanding that
1865, when the federal government conquered the Confederacy, because this country was set up initially. Thomas Jefferson said it. It's in the Declaration of Independence that you can break away if you don't deem what's going on fair. This was a collection of states, not one massive country, if that makes sense. And so once Lincoln did this to the South, and basically the thought then was, nope, we're all just one country. If you don't like it, too bad. This is a democracy. You're not your own individual entities. I think that's when the tide started to turn in the wrong direction.
So you don't like democracy? You don't like Lincoln? You don't like...
I don't know. Lincoln was the third worst president of all time.
Who are the other ones?
Woodrow Wilson's probably first. The top two, you could say FDR or Woodrow Wilson. Lincoln, that's always the debate. It's those three people. Lincoln certainly, there's a lot of blood on all of those hands. We'll say that, of Americans.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So let's kind of move on a little bit to a different little side of this. I've heard you say, and I like the idea of putting out like markers or some little predictions out there. But you know, you had talked about right now about Trump and Biden, and that's presidential stuff. But a lot of these cycles, people pay attention to the presidential cycles. I've heard you kind of say, and I don't know if you're still, this is kind of, but that you kind of feel that Tucker Carlson might be.
I still
kind of get
that.
a feel.
Yeah.
Get into that a little bit, because why, you know, it'd be cool if it does, because then you'd be like, hey, I told y'all.
Yeah. Should have bought stock in Buck Johnson. Obviously, right now on the Republican side, the clear front runner would be Ron DeSantis, because he's by far he's done the best job on anyone in the Republican Party at leading his state. He's a leader, not a follower like our governor here in Texas, but an actual leader. So I could see DeSantis certainly makes sense to be president, or at least their nominee in the Republican Party. I just have this gut feeling we're in a Hollywood TV persona world now. Donald Trump was the president. He was just a TV star. Joe Biden, you know, I realize we're back there and he's just a 40-year politician, but there was rumblings of Oprah running possibly, and then The Rock, and then Matthew McConaughey in Texas. Tucker Carlson is the biggest name in cable news by far as viewership goes. And he's a little bit out front of a lot of others on many issues. He's not afraid to kind of break away from the party line, certainly. He's been really hard on several Republicans. He's hard on the establishment guys all the time, like Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell. And he's very anti-war, which is why I love him so much. And that sentiment now has grown because of Donald Trump and the Republican Party. So if they're not going to go back to a neocon phase, which I think now is where the Democrats are, I just think they're headed in this populist kind of sentiment in the Republican Party. And that's either going to be Ron DeSantis or Tucker Carlson, in my opinion. And I remember I was watching Tucker one night and Candace Owens was on with him. And I told Brittany, there's your next two. There's your president and vice president. That's just my guess, but we'll see.
Oh, okay, cool. It'd be interesting. I know that Tucker Carlson, he spoke at the counter convention in 2008 that Ron Paul had. He was like, he introduced him, right?
Yes.
And he gave a cool speech. And I remember thinking, like, even back then, like, hey, this guy's probably on our side, meaning like the Ron, but you know, he also still talks some shit about Ron Paul when, you know, he's not a, like, you know, but I remember like, even back then I thought, okay, well, this guy's okay. And he's saying the right thing. So he put himself now in a position, you know, from where he came from, I guess he had another show, right? It was like on MSNBC, right?
He did, yeah.
He used to have like the bow tie and now to be on that spot, it's kind of like he's moving his pieces around to.
Yes.
So
he's made some interesting moves, and, you know, a lot of the Fox News viewership fell off after the election because a lot of people on the right feel that Fox News being the first to call Arizona, when even today there's clearly some dispute of who really won Arizona. They thought that was like the traitor move. Fox has abandoned us. That was very common. And everyone's going, what's Tucker going to do? Because he's the guy. Is he going to leave Fox? And he didn't leave Fox. They had to double down on him, where now he's got Tucker Carlson today, Tucker Carlson at night. He's doing like I said, the video podcast every day there. So they've basically said to their audience, please don't leave us. We'll give you more of Tucker Carlson. We know that's what you love. Please don't leave us. And so that shows basically how much power and influence that Tucker has. And so if you have that much power and influence, that's when you should be prepared to probably make some bigger steps forward. And I think that I just get this feeling that he could be the guy.
That's interesting. One of the things that well, let's get a little bit into the Tucker stuff, but just because he touches on a lot of subjects, and like the protectionist pro-tariffs. What's your take on that?
I don't love that part of the populist movement. And my friend Tho Bishop has said, if we can get Tucker Carlson and Lou Rockwell in the same room just to talk for a few hours, that Tucker will come out a much better person as far as protectionism. Tucker needs some help on economics. And if he can get that part sorted out, I think he'd be pretty damn good.
Visit PalomaVerdeCBD.com for all of your CBD needs. Get 25% off everything in their store by using the promo code RENEGADE.
Yeah, and then the other one that I know that I don't like, but you can't like everybody's politics. You can always just admire if they're sincere, and you just go from there. Is his like immigration policy. What is your take? What is your take on the immigration issue? Because a lot of my primos and primas, they're definitely wanting to know what the liberty movement talks about on immigration, and that way people know, like, there's debates on there's always good debate in the liberty movement about all kinds of topics. Actually, that's probably all they do is just debate on all kinds of
That's
things.
A big one though. Immigration and abortion are two hot, they're always hotly contested and debated topics within libertarianism. Part of that is because there's the theoretical world of libertarianism. So you don't need to debate borders if you're strictly in a libertarian society, because it's all privately owned. So if I own, let's say, this block, well, I get to decide. I have people from Mexico, Germany, they can come here, and I don't want Californians. Well, it's my rules.
No Calis over here.
Yeah, and Jeff Dice has said, and I agree with him, I'll take all the immigrants from Mexico if we can shut down the ones from California. But that's where it gets tricky. So when we respect property rights, and let's say you're at the southern border and it's free flow immigration, who owns that property? So if it's the taxpayers and it's public land, well, then do the taxpayers vote on who comes over? So it's a very muddy situation, which often happens when you involve government. You start getting confused in gray areas. So in other words, if you close the border of South Texas, then are you stopping the free flow of free individuals, their path of travel to get to where they want to go? Or are you respecting the people that live down there that don't want that happening? So that's always the confusion. And when you involve government, unfortunately, it's hard to sort these out without, harming one side or the other, really, because are you doing harm to the people that are trying to get in? Do you really want to see government officials cracking skulls or throwing people back over that just wanted to be peaceful here and live? Or, to Tucker's point, sometimes are the Democrats bringing in people that they can get hooked on welfare and then vote for them forever? So that's the tricky part.
Yeah, you had brought up Tho, and he had posted something about on Facebook about like what kind of Republican Party he stands for. And, I put a comment in there because I know immigration, I put something just like, well, what about, your immigration policy? And I don't think he put too much, but a lot like that comment, so it's, there's that of what you're saying, but, there's also like a lot of overtones that basically say that in the liberty movement that the brown colored, there's like some caution behind it. I don't know if it's that it's brown or something, but there is something like that. I mean, do you ever see any of that? Do you get it? Like there was no reason why my comment had to get that many hits.
Yeah.
But it obviously erupt people the way to be like, hey, go fix Mexico before you come. Just all kinds. Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere. But is it a problem in the liberty movement? Is it a minority, or am I just seeing it more because I'm trying to say that that we should just have as minimal restrictions possible to allow people to come in but I guess my question is, where do you stand on the immigration issue, and is it okay to have these debates when it talks about, I guess, not the race, but I don't know. I'm trying to ask the question in a way where I'm trying to see if you see that sometimes where it does become that, or do you just see it as, no, it's just a debate whether if it's open borders or restrictions like that?
That's what I see. I've not seen it through a racial lens much, especially within the liberty movement. It's this like nerdy economic debate quite often, which we find ourselves in sometimes. And so it's, there's often the thought that people coming in here from wherever, not just Mexico, but anywhere, if you still have welfare and public schooling or public or hospitals that just take people without paying. For instance, my friends that live in England, it's a married couple friend of mine, and the wife is pretty left wing. And she said they had this open immigration from Muslim countries. And she told me, well, we have free healthcare system here. You can't do that. You can't just accept a bunch of people because it messes it'll flood the market. And then we're waiting 10 hours or 10 months for medical treatment. And so there's that. Anytime you're bringing too many people in from anywhere that would clog a system, and when the government runs things, the system's not very efficient, so it's easy to clog. I see that argument. That's the economic argument. My perfect situation outside of 100% privately owned society would be eliminate all welfare and all public schools and anything publicly financed for healthcare, and open the borders.
Yeah, we both know Thad Russell, and he recently had a guest on that was trying to make the argument that most political movements or populist movements are the fear of the others,
yes,
being new immigrants and stuff like that, and man, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I have a different take because a lot of Ron Paul people that I knew through the Ron Paul campaign, when Trump started his rise, they kind of showed some different colors of rhetoric that almost like if they felt they had a little bit of space to kind of say some things that I don't be like
you would have said that 5 years ago.
Like you want to put crocodiles on the Rio Grande for what?
Yeah. I remember something about that.
And I was like,
the Florida alligators.
I was like, okay, but they feel free to do that. What is it about, but maybe a nation state or a state that fears others? Is it the people's I don't know, I guess natural defense to
change, to fight change, I think, because like when you say fear the others, we're in Texas here, South Texas, kind of. I kind of think like the Hispanic culture is just everywhere here. So it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I embrace it. And I fear the California culture coming here. But that's the fear of the other too. And so that's just like this this instinct to be like, this is our people here. I don't want those people coming in.
It's just
and so
natural.
I don't divide it by race. Well, maybe I do. I don't want a bunch of rich white Californians moving here to Lockhart and bringing their policies with them. I'll take all the Mexicans around here that are just like me. So it's not necessarily by culture as far as ethnicity goes, in my opinion.
But you just said white Californians.
Yeah, except I was going to say except those people. But that's the California people. Maybe some of them are Greek. I don't know. But I don't want the other, meaning them, bringing their politics here. It's like, well, why are you leaving California? I wonder why. Not too fun out there, is it? And blue state land.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, you know what? That is true. Like, I mean, I always just take it as that, like, you know, but yeah, I wouldn't also in my community, if there were some others that were coming that were going to bring chaos into the, into what might be some order that we have, it's natural to do that, I guess. But sometimes it just feels like, there's a little something else in there, but you know, nobody's perfect. So you got to just take it take it how it is. I've heard you mention before on some previous shows, and we're gonna change it up here a little bit because I want to get into this with you because I think it's cool with how much Vin Armani and Mobug have started influencing you and your thinking because, like you said, from 95 typing in secession to now, I mean, you know, but libertarian thoughts really are grounded on the foundational, like you can move a little bit, but once you kind of are there, you stay there. But I've kind of been hearing you kind of change a little bit on this stuff. Can you kind of talk a little bit how you've, not that it's changed, how the ideas are starting to take a new life or something with these guys like Mobug and Vin Armani and.
So libertarians, this includes me, we are very much into the theoretical world, and well, if we just obey the non-aggression principle, then XYZ will happen. The problem is getting from where we're at now to that part is always an issue, and a lot of libertarians are so stuck in the academic part where we're studying economics and the effects, and no one else talks about the unintended consequences of government policies, but we do. But it's like, okay, but we're in 2021 in the United States of America. How do we get to a better spot? You can't just go, well, we should all be libertarian, because we're not. The people that are turned on by studying libertarian philosophy are the amount of people that vote for the Libertarian Party candidate every year, and that's about 3% of the population. So that's not working. So the other problem with libertarianism is it's so thin, purposely thin. It just means the non-aggression principle. You can't harm people and you can't take their things. That's it. That's a good foundation, but you need much more than that. You can't just live your life as a pure libertarian. There's culture, there's family, there's religion. And libertarianism doesn't have an answer for those things, which is why I like paleo-libertarianism, because it does. You have to fill these voids with meaningful things in your life. And so people like Vin Armani, he's been good at talking about that kind of stuff. Mencius Moldbug fascinates me because he's brilliant. He has unique ideas, at least, I mean, and to me, there's ideas that he's preaching that I've never heard before. And he was a libertarian. So, as was Vin. So it's interesting to hear these people that were rooted in the same philosophy that I was or am, and how they've expanded it a bit further past just saying, you can't hurt people and you can't take their things. You need a lot more than that, which is why I think, again, to leftism being a supremacist movement, why that's infiltrated the Libertarian Party, because they sit there and go for years, we're not left and we're not right, we're just libertarianisms. We're just libertarians. So what that causes is a vacuum. And when you have a vacuum, unless you stand up to it, the left will take it over.
So it's when you say it's thin the message or or that libertarianism can't talk to the average person, or like
It's thin, meaning it's strictly non-aggression principle and nothing else. Like Christianity is thick, right? It's got all kinds of things that you should follow and sacraments and whatnot. Libertarianism just says one thing: don't hurt people and don't take their things. That's embodied in the non-aggression principle. Outside of that, libertarianism isn't anything. So that's a weird philosophy, right? You just have this one thing that you follow. Well, what else, what about the other parts of your life? What about the other parts of your society, your culture, your family? So you have to fill those with things. And I think people like Vin Armani are at least preaching tradition and religion and things like that help to fill your life with something positive rather than just chaos.
So then if so, yes, libertarians get 3%, but so then are you saying then also like to say then that liberalism and conservatism aren't then, and that's why they
speak to people's emotions, which is important to do. And as libertarians, for the most part, our philosophy does not. And most people are attracted to things when you tug on their heartstrings and you appeal to their emotions, rather than saying, do you not understand economics? And you can't do that. That violates the non-aggression principle. That doesn't pull anyone.
And how do you see libertarian? The liberty movement moving past that, because that is, if we're doing the stuff that we do, like I said, where do you see yourself flying, or where do you see yourself going with the liberty movement? How does it get past that type of, I don't know, strategic or mindset, or I mean, is it being more aggressive with I mean, I don't know, I'm asking you, how do we get past that? Because if not, then it sounds like it's a pointless cause.
Yeah, it feels that way sometimes. Create art, create things that, for instance, Ayn Rand. She was one of the biggest. Didn't even call herself a libertarian, but we can certainly agree that she preached free market economics, certainly, which is a part of libertarianism. She did it with books, with fiction books, and that reached massive amount of people. And stuff like that certainly helps if you can appeal to the art that people make and make art within your community. That would help. Messaging, media is so decentralized now. That helps a lot. To have someone like Dave Smith go on the biggest podcast in the world and reach, I don't know how many millions of people that Joe Rogan reaches. Things like that certainly help compared to 20 years ago when all you had is just kind of mainstream sources for media. So infiltrating different ways of getting messaging out there. Luckily, with technology and podcasts, that's helping a lot now. When I was young, for instance, like I said, I stumbled onto Alex Jones because he's on the FM radio station. There were no such things as podcasts. But then once podcasts came out, you can search for any topic you want, and it's out there, and it's out there in many forms. There's, how many libertarian podcasts are there now? Tons. So that helps. Methods of basically decentralizing.
So you're right there, you're speaking to like the culture, right?
Yes.
But what about libertarian politics going against the two-party system?
That's
because
we don't have any hope there. You're going to have to infiltrate the other two parties.
Okay, and that's a little debate that's been going on, that you've had Tho on and different people that or like Dave Smith, that where do you stand on that? Like, is that what you're saying? Have you been convinced that the libertarian political machine isn't going to do anything against the two-party system, or can you work on both fronts and say, hey, yeah, we should? I don't know. I'm asking you, like, because it's going to start heating up again. The news cycle is going to start heating up again.
Yes, it is. So I started in the Libertarian Party in the year 2000. And I wanted to be a delegate in 2016 for Jacob Hornberger as a Libertarian candidate. He ended up not winning the nomination, as we all know. Joe Jorgensen won. I'll tell you this. When I I went to Libertarian Party functions up until about 2004, 2005 probably. And then I kind of, party politics are not very appealing to me. I learned that now because I kept telling myself, oh, just stick it out a few more years. And so here's the deal. When I went back in 16, in the lead up to that election, we were trying to, like I said, be delegates for Jacob Hornberger. A very large amount of the exact same people were going to the meetings that I saw in 2000. They were just 15 years older. And I looked around and I thought, you guys have not done a damn thing in 15 years, not one thing. And you're still going to these meetings, and it's just this little social club of, and they looked at us, all these ANCAPs came in because of Hornberger, and which is a good thing. I met a lot of new friends that way, but they were like, whoa, they're outsiders. They're trying to take over our little social club kind of thing. And it's just, we're a two-party system. I wish we weren't. I wish we had 10 parties that could all stand a chance, but we don't. The Libertarian Party will never have a chance at running a credible nominee to be president. It's just not going to happen. So once you understand the reality of politics, you're going to have to figure out a way to get your message through the structures that we currently have operating. And so that's the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So I would advise libertarians on the national level and probably state level, you're going to have to go that route. If you want to do city level, party politics aren't much of a thing. Like, I don't know what party my mayor here belongs to. I suspect it's the Republican Party, but I don't know that. That's kind of the feel and the culture within your local community that you could infiltrate that quite easily, I suspect. But then again, running as a libertarian out and about proudly, what good is that going to do to win a city council seat here? I could just be a libertarian philosophically and still win the seat. I don't need the party to back me up. So that's when you get into, again, the pointlessness of an actual libertarian party. I will say, here's what they should do. Here's what the LP should do. Focus on elections where you're purposely trying to get someone to lose. Not your candidate, but the one who's sitting currently. For instance, Gavin Newsom, if he doesn't get recalled, the California Libertarian Party should absolutely run a left libertarian for governor. And straight up tell Gavin Newsom, we're doing this so you lose, so we take votes from you and the Republican wins. Because then all of a sudden, they start having to pay lip service to you. And for instance, in Florida, the Libertarian Party should not run anyone against Ron DeSantis when he goes for re-election. He's been by far the most freedom-oriented governor in the world, essentially. So you do not run someone against him. That would also, money in the LP is a very finite resource. It's not full of rich donors. So that would allow you then to funnel your limited resources into certain candidates. Again, when Shane Hazel ran for Congress in Georgia and ended up throwing it to the runoff where the Democrats won, the Trump campaign, the Trump presidency, the Trump cabinet, whatever you want to call it, should have gone down to Georgia and told Shane Hazel, please don't run against the Republicans. I'll have the Republicans talk about auditing the Federal Reserve. I'll have them talk about no gun laws. I'll have them talk about the drug war. If that's what you want, please do not run against them. And so then all of a sudden, the Libertarian Party candidate has some power because you're going to throw an election, possibly, conceivably. So I think that's the one way for a Libertarian Party to have power, is to scare the sitting people and to at least rhetorically offering some platitudes, some things that are on the Libertarian Party platform, because if they're doing it from their bully pulpit, so to speak, then those ideas do get out there into the mainstream.
Yeah, so it's run left-leaning libertarians to
oust a Democrat,
to oust and the Republicans are gonna just play nice to the libertarians.
Well, so for instance, when Ron DeSantis runs in 2022 for re-election, the Libertarian Party should go, you know what? We're not going to run someone against you if you at least say X, Y, Z on your campaign. We like what you did with the lockdowns. We're a free state here. You took the mask mandates away. You're now making it illegal to have vaccine passports, etc. Mention decriminalization of marijuana, and we're good. We're not running anyone against you.
So then that would be a political victory.
Yes, for libertarianism.
And it becomes a conversation to every day.
Because when Ron DeSantis says something, his followers and his supporters go, yes, King. And so if he could just bring up, maybe let's decriminalize medical marijuana and then maybe move on to marijuana, they're not going to go, no, wait a second, that's a bridge too far. They're still going to vote for the guy.
Okay, so how do you put this plan into action? Because now you need to get in touch with you got to put a blueprint out there if that's something that you're kind of advocating for. Which I'm starting to understand that. I can see how the Libertarian Party can be a player, knowing their role in the game as I guess the little leverage that can be put to each side to get some concessions or get the spoiler. So how do you put that kind of plan into action then?
Well, you show this podcast to every state Libertarian Party in the country. Well, it's hard because, like I said, the LP is an old social club and they like to say we're neither left nor right. So there's going to be all this infighting if they want to endorse or not run someone against Ron DeSantis or someone that's good like that, or do they run someone just to have Gavin Newsom lose? There's going to be a lot of old school people that say, that's not what we're about. We're about running the best candidate that represents liberty and losing for the rest of our lives. So you have to get people in spots within the LP that have authority, state party, Libertarian Party of Florida, state head or whatever, that agree with this. I don't suspect that would be very easy. That's just the role I believe the LP should be willing to play, because it's the one way they could actually get libertarian policies enacted, at least put also into the public discussion, if nothing more. That's a big, they don't have that now, right?
And do you think that it would be easier to implement this type of strategy if there was people in the positions of power that were from the Mises Caucus?
Within the LP, yeah, because the Mises Caucus represents a young energy. And I think that a takeover, some of them don't like calling it that, but a takeover would certainly represent a refreshed energy within the LP. And hopefully there could be people in positions of power that would agree with this tactic. I don't know that there will be, but they certainly stand a better chance of doing that than the old guard within LP. That's for sure, because I've been around those people a long time.
And we had mentioned Dave Smith is someone that he's put his name out there as for like libertarian president. And he's part of the Mises Caucus. Just how we were trying to get into this through the Ron Paul and the Republican Party, the old guard, they don't give up their power that easy.
Right.
But also, you're kind of making it seem like it's a social club, so maybe it can be infiltrated in a way to put people in those type of positions. But we're also putting it out there. So, are we going
to ruin their plan?
I mean, but it's funny that you said, I kind of like the chaos of it all. Because, if we had Donald Trump in there, he just had him, and the budgets, the fiscal budgets, most of the war stuff kind of continue. It just seemed like there was a continuation of the perpetual growth of government, the however you want to call it, the deep state bureaucratic class. They kind of mostly just went with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I lost my train of thought. I guess I was gonna. No, that's right. From chaos, you can get some new beginnings. But I also know that you're someone that has talked about that from chaos can come a lot of disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And this was going to be one of my questions was, doesn't chaos make life interesting?
Not in a good way. I mean, it makes life interesting. I think that outside of the likely shenanigans happening with voting throughout various states, I think there's a certain percentage of the population that wanted Joe Biden to win just because they felt it would help stop chaos. So I thought it was interesting because you had a figure in the presidency that was not wanted by the powers that had always run things. That was very obvious. They concocted story after story about how it really happened and it wasn't legal and all of this stuff with Russia and whatnot. So that was chaotic because it showed, wait a second, the social club, the large one, the deep state, if you want to call it that was infiltrated all of a sudden. And that did create a lot of chaos. I found that certainly interesting. It was an interesting experiment in political science that we all learned from over the last 4 years. But I also think a large percentage of the population were like, just elect Joe Biden so we can get back to normal. I think in a way that was crafted a bit by, again, the powers that be. If we can make Trump seem like a chaotic, bumbling fool that no smart person would actually like or care about, then we can go back to our social club. The American people will have learned, like, don't elect an outsider. See how that went last time?
Yeah, I guess also I'm trying to bring back the first question about the left wing and the right wing, and it's kind of my question to you then is, do you just get rid of the chaos all the time, or do you leverage it and use it because it's always going to be around?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, what we're doing right now is a little chaotic. Meaning we're having a conversation. We don't know where it can go. Yeah. It can go anywhere. It can be, we're just two guys talking some shit on the stuff, right? But that chaos allows for like, hey, something positive can come out of it, which I hope, anybody that's watching gets something positive. So the chaos is still important, right? Yes. Or it's needed.
So I would say to that, all chaos isn't necessarily left-wing philosophy. All left-wing philosophy leads to chaos. So yeah, there's good chaos, and of course you can't have everything structured in order because we all have free will, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So yeah, there's comfort almost in certain aspects of chaos, and I don't know what you're going to ask me next. I could rip that out of your hand and see that would be chaotic, but. But yeah, chaos in itself is not always bad, but the chaos pushed by the left is.
So speaking of good chaos, can you please get into a little bit about the event that you're going to host here at your beautiful home here?
Speaking of chaos, we talked about that last night, didn't we? Well, I'm going to put people in positions of power to keep it organized and structured and make sure Carlos makes everyone crunches the numbers. And so the event will be in October. It's called Are You Live? Renegade University.
Are You Live Texas? Right?
Live Texas. And it's going to be here at my house in Lockhart, Texas. Right here. You guys will not be in here. The event is going to be outside. I've got
all the chaos outside.
Yes, exactly. This is all order in here. And so it will be Thaddeus Russell, of course, putting the whole thing on. Scott Horton, Deidre McCluskey, Jack the Perfume Nationalist. Who else we got? Oh, Hotep Jesus.
Yes.
And of course, I will be here. Did I hit them all?
I think you did.
Scott Horton,
yeah.
Horton, obviously. Yeah, how did I forget Scott? So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be Friday nights, the VIP. hangout, dinner, lounge. Saturday's the main body of the event, and then we're going to have some stuff on Sunday as well. I can't remember the weekend. I should know that. I think it's October 9th.
That's right. I should have wrote it. That's the 16th, 9th, or one of those. It's one of those. But
it's not the 16th. I know that for a fact. That's my anniversary.
Okay.
And it is not that day.
So then probably not. But I'm gonna put information on it and my link. We were talking about my link.
So don't use mine.
No, my link. But we're excited. Paloma Verde is sponsoring the event. So we're excited and we'll be here. And Buck, can you? For my audience, just let people know where they can reach you, where they can see your show, where they can get into it, and so they can just know.
Yeah. So if you listen to podcasts, you already know how to look them up. Just search Counterflow with Buck Johnson. We have a YouTube channel now that my guy Justin, is working on. So when I was doing Death to Tyrants, all the YouTube videos were just a still shot of the art image, and when I switched to Counterflow, one of Thad's generous tips, which I think is very much a good idea, is that we started putting all of the interviews on video. So on the YouTube channel now, every episode, you actually see me and the guest speaking. Of course, probably as this comes out, maybe my most recent episode will have been me with 3 people that couldn't show their faces because they need to be anonymous. You'll see why. But yeah, most of the interviews are on there, the YouTube channel. You can find me. Oh, you know what? We've got a new website that's also up and running. Counterflowpodcast.com. That's got my Twitter link, Instagram, the Facebook stuff, everything. It's got all the episodes, and the new t-shirts that you can order are there on counterflowpodcast.com. And find us in the Telegram group. If you're one of those weirdos like me that has the Telegram app, these secret communications, we've got a Counterflow podcast group there as well. Lots of exchanging of ideas, articles, videos, all kinds of things to keep you up on the latest of what in the hell's going on in this chaotic world.
So once again, check out Buck, follow him. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy the content. It's different to do it in person, but if I was gonna do it, to do with Buck like this it's awesome. And thank you, Brittany, and you for opening up the house, and Babe for helping with the video stuff and all that. And salud, homie.
Cheers.
Peace.